السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله، أما بعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Inshallah, we are going to start our fourth session of our Ramadan FAQs series, inshallah. We're going to answer to the best of our ability questions, inshallah, that pertain to the month of Ramadan and often are asked in the month of Ramadan particularly, inshallah ta'ala. So the last couple of sessions, or few sessions, we've talked a lot about the fast, right? The ibadah of fasting, and questions that pertain to that. Inshallah, as I mentioned before, that there are going to be different types of questions that arise in people's mind, particularly the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So we are going to talk about a few different types of questions outside of just the fasting, inshallah. So the first question I'm going to, inshallah, post for us to be able to see, hopefully. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The first question is, when is Zakat due for me? Okay, so when is the Zakat amount due upon a person? So just a second. Okay, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So when is a person zakat eligible? When does a person have to pay the zakat? So first and foremost, there's a concept called nisab. Right? Nisab is a basic threshold of when a person qualifies or does not qualify to pay the zakat. And so the how is that derived? Based on the value of gold or silver, right? So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the nisab was calculated to about 612 grams of silver or 87 grams of gold, right? So based on the value of that, the threshold of nisab is established. Now, when you take silver or gold, the threshold changes drastically, right? From like almost about $3,500 potentially, to a few hundred dollars only when it's taken by silver. So what the ulama have done for the most part is taken the gold as a nisab threshold. Why? Because it will create a pool of more it will not put a situation where people that are already poor and could potentially really use the zakat money aren't having to become givers now, right? Because silver would decrease it to like a few hundred. So if a person had only $300, they have to give zakat, versus a person that has about at least a few $1,000s in their account, enough for a rainy day, and then they are giving. Those people that only have a few $100s, that Allah forbid something tough happens and the car breaks down or something happens in the life, they're still giving zakat and they're in a very difficult situation. So the gold nisab is taken. So nisab is the first thing I want us to keep in mind. It's a threshold and every day it changes, right? So wherever you are in any country, check the nisab amount currently, because the value of gold and silver are always constantly changing. So based on a minimum amount, right, about roughly around 87 grams, just over 87 grams of gold will be the threshold amount, the value of that, right? So, for example, if it's $3,500, right, the moment my money goes above that, my nisab calculator starts, right? The timing starts to run, right? The the clock starts ticking on my annual year of zakat, right? So let's just say nisab is $3,500. Ramadan of this year, alhamdulillah, or let's just say January. So January 2021, I broke that threshold of nisab, which was, let's just say, $3,500, right? $3,500. January 1st, I became a person that possessed $4,000. Now my nisab, or sorry, my zakat year is has begun, right? So now January of 2021, I will go all the way until January of 2022, right? However, in the Islamic calendar, we're going to use the lunar years, right? So try to figure out, once you've broken that threshold, which Islamic month you're in, and exactly a year after, your zakat is going to be due. Now what happens, right? Let's say January 2021, I broke the threshold. I had about $4,000 in my account. Now January 2022 comes. Now the January 1st of 2022, I will sit down, because my zakat is due upon me, and figure out how much I have. Right now, if I have, alhamdulillah, it was a successful year, and from $4,000, my savings became $40,000. Right, became $40,000 from $4,000. What amount am I going to pay zakat on? You're going to pay on the ending amount. Okay, brothers, just keep that in mind. So, the year starts at $4,000. But at the exact end of the year, I have $40,000. Now, would I pay on the 4,000 or the 40,000, or you're going to pay on the ending amount, the amount that you possess on the day that your zakat year ends? You will pay zakat on that amount, inshallah, right? And then you will take 2.5% of that, and you will pay that, and you will only pay zakat on we'll talk about that in the next question, inshallah. Okay, so when is zakat due for me? Zakat is due for me when you've broken the threshold of nisab, and you've maintained that at the beginning, right? Because you broke that threshold, and exactly a year later, you still maintain that you've been above the threshold of nisab, right? Now, what happens in between? Right, let's say within that year of 2021, before January 2022, my zakat dipped. My finances dipped, right? So from $4,000 being $3,500 being the threshold, and I had $4,000 that took me above. Let's just say in August, right? I had expenses, and my money went all the way down to only $500. I have $4,000 to $500. But then I rebounded, alhamdulillah. September, October, November, December, all the way up until January 1st, I rebounded, and I ended with that $40,000, mashallah. Right? I had a successful 3 months, a really successful 3 months, and I was able to save up to $40,000, even though you dipped in between, right, of the beginning and the end. Even if I dipped in between, I will still pay zakat. Okay, that's something that confuses a lot of people. Even if I did, what's important is the date of the beginning of the year and the date at the end of the year. Okay, so the amount, sorry, right? The amount at the beginning and the amount at the end. If both are above the nisab amount, then I will be zakat eligible, and I will pay on zakat on the amount at the end of the year, inshallah. Okay, so if I hope that inshallah answers this question in regards to when is my zakat due, or what is zakat do for me, inshallah. Okay, moving along, inshallah ta'ala. I'm going to type in the next question, inshallah. Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The second question is, do I pay zakat on money I have borrowed someone? So I have loaned someone some money and I have not received it back at all. I have not received any of it back, or I haven't received it in full yet. They're paying me some. They're paying it to me in installments, or whatever the case may be. I borrowed someone money. Now, am I going to have to pay zakat on that amount of money that I've lent someone? So understand, we're talking here about personal loans, right? So someone needed some financial assistance, or someone, whatever the case may be, an institution, whatever it may be. I've borrowed them money, I've lent it to them, I've given them a loan. And the most important thing to understand here is that, and I hope to get that loan back. And if there's actual genuine hope, inshallah, that you will get the money back from this person, then you have to pay zakat on that amount. Okay? If I have genuine hopes, I have expectation, yes, perhaps it may be delayed sometimes, right? So we decide, you know what, I'll give it to you in a year. The year has come, the person's going through a difficult time, and you said, you know what, that's okay. What do you have the capacity to do? So pay it back to me, right? So someone goes and runs it. They promised a year to return your money, and they genuinely fell into difficult times, and they're not able to do so within a year. Maybe they need another extra 3 months, or they need a couple months, another 6 months, whatever it may be. But you genuinely expect that money to be returned. When you have good reason and you expect that money to be returned, then you will be paying zakat on that. Right? Now, if you loan someone money and you do not expect that loan to be paid back, that person really is not going to pay you back. They've expressed it, or they've delayed it for so long that you're like, this person's really not going to pay back. If you really genuinely lost hope, again, you have to be honest here, because zakat is an ibadah, it's a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something that we are going to be liable of on the day of judgment, and it's a very scary reality around zakat. Rasulullah says, right? In the qabr, there's a severe adhab, right? So keeping all that in mind, inshallah, we are going to be just, right? And even without having to be scared into it, we understand the obligation of faridah and the benefit that the ummah derives, the poor derive from our zakat, inshallah. So be honest in the situation, inshallah, that am I going to get it back, or am I not? If I've lost hope, if I've genuinely lost hope, right, this person is really not going to give it back, then the zakat will not be on that amount of money that you've loaned. Okay, now how do I pay that amount? How do I factor that in, right? If it's a large amount of money, right, it's a tens of thousands of dollars. So if it's tens of thousands of dollars, if it's a large amount that I've loaned someone to pay zakat on that, and everybody has different financial situations, right? Sometimes you don't have the capacity. You're given a large amount of loan, and you expected it back, or you expect it back by a certain time. It's not back, and subhanAllah, your finances become tight yourself. So how do I pay the zakat on that, right? So either you can factor that amount into your zakat right now and pay it if you have the capacity to do so. Sure, right? So if I've given a loan of $10,000 and my zakat was, going back to the previous example, $40,000. right? My ending amount was $40,000, and I have $10,000 of loan. So I will add that to my amount, $50,000. I would combine those amounts, and then I will take 2.5% of $50,000, and I'll give that away in zakat. Now, if the load is massive, right, $100,000 or whatever, or even if it's not massive, right, for that matter, if the loan has not been received yet, and although zakat is due on it, what a person can do also is that once I get all that money back, when I get all $10,000 back, then I can backlog, right, for the years the money was not returned to me, or the year the money was not returned to me, and I can calculate 2.5% of every year and then discharge it all at once when I get the $10,000, right? So again, that's going to be once you receive the money, but you have to backlog every year, right? So if I have it, I receive the money 3 years later, right? I will take the $10,000, deduct 2.5% for the first year, put that aside. Then I will take the remainder amount of the $10,000 after I've deducted the first year's 2.5%. I will deduct the second year's 2.5% from that, and then I will leave that aside, and then I will go on to the third year and then give that all away. So you can do it all lump sum, or you will do it all as going, right? So as you're going, you will discharge it with your zakat. You'll factor that into your zakat, and you'll give it back. Again, this is when you have genuine hopes that the loan is going to be returned. If you have lost that hope genuinely that the person is really going to give me my money back, then there will be no, then that can be removed from your zakatable amount, inshallah. Okay. There's a question, inshallah, if you can clarify that. It says how much you pay per child. If you can clarify that question, we'll try to address that as we go, inshallah ta'ala, or at least at the end of the session, if we can make out and understand the question. If not, we'll try to do that after the session, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, we will, inshallah, move on to the next question. Okay, the final question, inshallah, for today. Inshallah, there's questions. We'll try to address them afterwards, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so bear with us. Let's complete this question. Perhaps this will answer your questions. If not, inshallah, we'll try to address them at the end. So, what do I pay zakat on, and what can I deduct? Right? What is zakatable money versus what is non-zakatable money? What do I not owe zakat on? What can I not be what does not have to be factored into my zakat, and what does? So zakat, let's simplify it as much as possible, inshallah. The first thing I will pay zakat on is any money that I have in my savings, personal money, right? So out of all my income, if I have a business, anything I have acquired money after all my costs are cut, what becomes my own possessed money in my own possession, saved money, my money, right? So that's going to be the first thing you're going to factor, right? And that has to be the, again, everything has to reach a certain threshold, but that's the first thing we're going to factor into, inshallah, okay? So I have a business account, whatever the case may be. What is my personal money, right? Even if it's in separate accounts in different places, what is mine and what I actually have access to? Okay, that's important. So that's the first thing I'm going to factor. The second is going to be gold, right, or silver. Okay, the second and third, gold or silver, that I have to pay zakat on. In addition to that, we can add, again, we're going back to the loans, right? The loans that I've given someone and I expect it to be repaid to me, I will factor that into that, as well as These five, right? Now, any other valuables are not zakatable, brothers and sisters. Okay, understand that, right? So, my own money, gold, silver, any money I've loaned back, and the fifth thing I'm going to add actually is that any inventory if I have a business. So anything that is considered inventory or merchandise that I'm going to flip, and that is going to be my trade, right? That's going to be what something that I sell, right? So if a person has a shoe store, right? So any inventory is going to be factored in, right? And the now is it the selling price or the market price? It's going to be the market price that's going to be factored in, okay? So not the selling price, but the market price, the value on that day of that items or those items, okay? So if I'm selling cars, I'm going to factor that in, okay? So those are the things I want us to keep in mind, right? Keep in mind, right? The amount of cash and savings at home or in the bank, number one. The value of gold and silver, so we're going to lump that into one. Number three is value of assets or merchandise that you have for your business. That's number three. If you don't have a business and you're just working a 9 to 5 job or corporate job, then you don't have to worry about that, inshallah ta'ala, right? So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is any receivable loans, right? Loans that you've given to someone and you're going to expect to get that back, inshallah. All of those you're going to calculate and you're going to gather that together. And once you gather that all together, you've added all those up, right? You can weigh your gold or silver and understand the husband and the wife, if they are separate when it comes to zakat, right? One is not liable, does not have to pay the zakat on behalf of the other person. And one having enough money doesn't qualify the other person to have to give zakat as well. Understand that, inshallah, okay? So if the husband's got an income of $100,000 does not mean, right, or a savings of rather, sorry, of $100,000 does not mean that zakat has to be paid on behalf of the wife, nor does it mean that the wife has to pay zakat on her own. Now, if she has her own amount of money, right, finances in savings and in gold and silver that breaks the threshold of nisab for an entire year, and she's maintained that for the whole from the beginning to the end of the year, then she will have to pay her own zakat. The husband will have to pay his own zakat. However, if one of the spouses chooses to pay zakat on behalf of the other spouse, they can do so and it'll be discharged, okay? Inshallah. But just because one qualifies doesn't mean that the other one is going to automatically qualify, number one. Number two, the one does not have to pay it on behalf of the other spouse. If they choose to do so, it will be discharged on their behalf, inshallah. Okay, so these are the four things that we're going to pay zakat on. Okay, first, cash or any savings in your bank or your home. Number two is gold or silver, and the value of that you're gonna weigh it, and the value of the market rate, right? The value of that gold or silver that day, inshallah. The third is any assets or merchandise that is part of your trade, right? That is inventory, that is sellable inventory. And then the fourth is receivable loans that you expect to receive back, inshallah, right? So you're going to add all those up, and if it stays above the threshold of nisab from the beginning and the end of the year, then you are going to pay 2.5% of all of that, okay, inshallah. You don't have to give it away. The gold and silver that I have, I don't have to give that away. I will calculate the value of that, inshallah. 2.5% of that I will give away. Again, lump sum. Doesn't mean that I have to do silver and gold, something like that, separately. But I will gather all of them together, and then I will give 2.5% of them, inshallah. Okay. Precious stones, rubies, diamonds, they're not zakatable, brothers and sisters. Okay. There's no zakat on that. It's only on gold and silver. So if a sister has rubies or diamond rings or this and that, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you, inshallah, in what He has given you, but they are not zakat eligible. Okay, there's no zakat on those, inshallah. What can I deduct? Quickly, inshallah, we're going way over time. What can I deduct? I will deduct any debts that I have. Right now, what can be a debt? So if I have a genuine debt, right now, if I have small payments, right, and be honest again in this situation, and the muftis advise that if you have a small debt, right, let's say I'm financing my cell phone, which is like $20-30 a month. Do I really want to add that into as a debt? You may, perhaps, right? But the more, inshallah, the safer or the better route is that If it's a small amount, inshallah, I don't factor that into my debts, however you may, right? But if a person has any major debts, that can be uh, subtracted from the nisab amount. And if the nisab is lower than, if the amount that person has is lower than the nisab, then the person will not have to pay zakat at that moment, right? Or if it lowers it to a significantly less, but still above the nisab, then they will still pay zakat, but on a lesser amount, right? So what can I deduct from my just a second, I just want to pull up some notes here. Okay, so debts, right? What can I calculate as a debt? Anything that is I owe, right? If it's a significant amount, then I can remove that, right? And subtract it from the nisab amount. And if it's puts me below the threshold of nisab, I will not owe nisab. Now, a question comes, especially in our contemporary times, is that like if I have a house payment, my mortgage, right, or my car payments, or student loans that I have to pay back, these are all debts, right? I've purchased something, now I owe this amount, and it's a huge amount, right? Houses are several $100,000. Now, if I subtract and if I use that against my zakat, then I probably won't be paying zakat for a very long time, perhaps maybe my whole entire life, even though, mashallah, I make a very healthy salary, alhamdulillah, right? And my expenses are covered and above, and I'm able to save some money at the end of the day. But I have this loan, I have a mortgage, I have a car payment on top of that, and I have a student loan on top of that. What do I do? So the ulama advise that take a year's amount of that, right? So the entire year of how much I'm going to pay in my mortgage, my car payments, my student loans, or whatever it may be, any major loans, okay, major loans, and use the amount of that year and deduct that from your nisab, okay? You use the amount, that total. So if my mortgage is about $1,000 a month, all right, then in the entire year, even though it's a $400,000 or $100,000 house, right, but it's $1,000 a month, I will multiply that by 12, make $12,000, and I can hold that $12,000 I can deduct that as a debt, right, as a debt for me, against me, and therefore I can hold that against my zakatable amount, inshallah. Okay, so what do I pay zakat on? We said the four things, inshallah. There is any money in your savings, in your possession, in your bank, gold and silver, any merchandise if you're a businessman, right? Again, this is merchandise, right? If I'm into the business of service, that is not a product, right? There's service in that, right? So again, anything that is a tangible product that I'm going to sell and flip and make money off of, that's going to be zakatable if you have inventory. And the fourth thing is what was the fourth thing? So yes, the fourth thing is any receivables, loans, inshallah. Any loans that I expect to receive on my end, inshallah. Inshallah, hopefully that answers all the questions. If you have any other questions, inshallah, feel free to email at the Imam's email address on our website, inshallah, at Islamic Center of Aubrey. At the same time, inshallah, there's a few questions. If I can understand them, inshallah, I will try to answer them. So if you have $10,000. I'm assuming this is after you've done all what we've mentioned, right? So if you have $10,000 or whatever the currency that you are using, inshallah, wherever you are, how much do you pay from it? You will only pay 2.5% of that, right? So 2.5% of $10,000 will be what, $250, right? So you will only pay $250 on that $10,000. That's the amount that you are going to owe in zakat, inshallah ta'ala, right? Let me just verify that. I hope my math is not wrong. Yeah, $250, inshallah. Okay, so if you have $10,000, you will pay only 2.5% of that. Again, we're assuming you minus all your debts and you've factored in your loans and all that. If everything boils down to $10,000, inshallah, you will pay 2.5%. Okay, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. Inshallah, it's a small slice of our income, and this is the right of the poor, right? Intend that, inshallah, right? Intend that the zakat is the right of the poor over us. It's not something that we're doing as a favor to them, inshallah. It will purify our money. You will see the barakah coming immediately after the zakat is discharged, inshallah. And you will experience and you will sense and you will realize it yourself, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us, inshallah. Brother Barak Tahiro, I don't understand about paying from mortgage. The mortgage, that amount that you owe for a house or whatever, maybe let's say for a house, right? If it's a couple $100,000, right? If it's a $300,000-$400,000 house, you will only subtract from the zakat of that year for that year's payments. Okay, so if my monthly payment is $1,000, annually that's going to be $12,000, and that $12,000 can be held as a debt against my zakat amount. Okay, so that's a debt on me, and therefore I will subtract that from the total amount. And if I'm still above the threshold of nisab, I will pay zakat on that remaining amount. If I'm below the threshold of nisab, then I will not pay zakat on that anymore. Does that make sense, inshallah? So let's say $12,000, right? $1,000 mortgage a month, it adds to $12,000. Now, when I've factored in all my zakatable income, right, or my assets, whatever I have that is zakatable, we've mentioned those 4 things, and when I boil it down, I have, let's say, $20,000. I subtract the $12,000 from the $20,000. I still have $8,000. Now I will pay zakat on only $8,000 and not the $20,000. Even though I have that in my possession, I have a debt of $12,000, so I can hold that against the $20,000, and I will only pay zakat on $8,000. Now, in your example, let's say if you have only $10,000, when everything's boiled down, but I have my mortgage which comes up to $12,000, and I subtract that against my from $10,000, what happens? I'm negative $2,000. So I'm well under. I'm not only under the nisab, I'm in the negative in terms of nisab. The person will not have to pay zakat at that point, inshallah. I hope that clarifies, inshallah. If not, please feel free to email us at imam@aubreymasjid, inshallah.org. Okay, so if you have any more questions in regards to the zakat question, inshallah, please feel free to reach out to us, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we'll see you again next weekend at the same time, 2:15, inshallah, Central Time. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.